if you are more happy with some goof saying you had a 5-star match and the building is a quarter full, we're not in the same business. CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk, telling the truth just like he always does. What a goddamn interview. Let's talk about it. I'm John Rentham with my real honest thoughts on CM Punk on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. Let me know your thoughts on this particular interview in the comments, please. Nearly 2 goddamn hours, so going over everything in minute detail would be impossible. I would be here all goddamn day, but I did finally watch it. I was able to see clips while I had some slow periods at my work, but I was only able to watch about half of it before Raw and then watch the rest of it after Raw. So much stuff to talk about, so much to dive into. Now, I will say, prefacing this by saying that I am a big CM Punk fan. I have this shirt. I used to have his WWE one. I was actually at the Slammy Awards edition of Raw just a few weeks before he left WWE right after the Royal Rumble 2014. He looked done. He looked tired. He was beat up. A whole lot of stuff. He talked about that on the infamous Art of Wrestling, with Colt Boom Boom Cabana. Oh boy, that guy. He torpedoed his goddamn friendship, didn't he? But there was a lot of shit that went on there, and Punk went through a whole lot of stuff, and he seems happier, seems healthier. And the stuff about AEW is brought up. And I will say that I'm not the absolute biggest fan of Ariel Helwani. He does actually have a good interview style when he is given a chance to dive into talking to people and, actually, get some good stuff out of them when they're receptive to his questions, unlike Tony Khan. God, that whole thing was just a dumpster fire. But Punk had some good stuff to say here. Now, I know there are some people that are just going to absolutely hate the fact that I am a CM Punk fan. Had it not been for CM Punk coming back to AEW, I probably wouldn't have been as fully invested in AEW because he was able to be, besides, MJF, Thunder Rosa, and a few others, he was able to be kind of the lightning rod to get me more into a lot of stuff that AEW was doing. And did everything work? No. The stuff with MJF did. Had it not been for Punk being in AEW, I would have never been able to get the sweet t-shirt that he wore on a show that they had in Texas. And I just want to say, by the way, that if you have an issue with women having the right to choose, you're a fucking asshole. Women should have the right to choose. It's their body, and they will choose if they want to. But this took place on April Fool's Day, and yes, I will do a video that you may find on the channel after this is up. Maybe if you're finding this out of sync, you might see the video that I'm going to do about the AEW releases that, as of now, there are a few talents deep and everything, and kind of convenient that after this comes out, that suddenly happens. But that's for another video. At the time, we didn't know that was going to happen. So there is the 4-hour and 44-minute clip or podcast, thing. It's not really a clip, where he interviews various people, Ariel does. And then at about the 64-minute mark, that's when Punk comes in. They did put the hour 50-minute, block of him talking to Punk on the MMA Hour YouTube channel. I was able to save that and like it. So I am going to actually check out some of that at some point. I like the set. I like the fact that he's a big Bret the Hitman Hart fan. Punk instantly puts... And I'm going to say right now, yes, I know his name is Phil Brooks. I don't know him personally. He mentions his wife, April, a.k.a. AJ Lee. So I'm going to mention that since he calls her by her real name. Just want to say that. His injury is healing, but he could have... He wanted to just keep going, but the company had to protect him from himself. And talking about the tear, he knew instantly what was going to happen. He was in an immense amount of pain. He was called by Nick Khan, the week of Thanksgiving before Survivor Series about coming into the company. He signed his contract when, during, I believe, just, during the show, and then went out and did that. Now, I don't know if that's hyperbole. I think that that's hyperbole. I know. But I don't know if maybe that's, doing, fluffing things up a little bit. You never know. Punk does say multiple times. You don't know where the character or him speaking the way he does when it's, working and when it's the truth. But he does speak from the heart. And, talking about burying the hatchet with Triple H. There was some good stuff here. He had no compete. He had no non-compete. Because Tony Khan fired him with cause. More on that in a bit. When he arrived at WWE and Raw in Chicago in May of 2023, this is before, when he was healed, everything he mentions how Liv Morgan helped him find an earbud. Liv Morgan, I really wish was getting a match at Mania. As of this particular review, she is not getting that. That's kind of bullshit. But Bailey, a good friend of his, suggested he come to Raw, and AEW talents felt betrayed. I wonder what talents felt betrayed. Let me just say right now that I am not a fan of the Elite, especially the Bucks. The Bucks are pretty much the biggest cancers, them and Jericho, to AEW. And the Bucks are basically the fakest type of Christians, fakest type of human beings, and I have no problem saying that. Again, Punk is not a perfect individual. I would have handled things differently, but I don't fault him handling things the way he did. So he signed his contract and then went to Gorilla and then went to Survivor Series, or went out, got a big pop. He couldn't hear the music because it was so goddamn thunderous, and it was a monster goddamn pop. It's hard to believe it's actually about almost 5 months ago since that happened. He's happy to be back. He was very thrilled with his return. I did like how that basically how others inspired him, and that there are others that, were inspired by him, and he feels it's a give and take thing, like how Brett inspired him, how some he worked with in AEW were inspired by him. Believe the bullshit if you want, basically, he says, but leave me alone. That's another thing that basically gets worked out here. The culture has changed. There was a lot of, shark-infested twatters, which sounds really painful. Still sounds better than the movie Piranha. I'll let you decide which one I'm talking about. But, once he was back, he had the trip to Raw, trip to NXT, and then the clip that went a little viral, as the kids say, him talking to Cora Jade. He's a monster! Kick him out of the locker room! Fire him! If you're an AEW diehard and you don't like what I'm saying, by the way, look at the company. Look at the state of the company. You can be happy with whatever, but you need to enjoy pro wrestling. I'm never going to tell people not to enjoy pro wrestling. You can enjoy people I don't like. You can enjoy styles I don't like. I hate deathmatch wrestling. I hate comedy wrestling. I hate certain wrestling gimmicks and certain presentations of wrestling. But that doesn't mean you have to, and that doesn't mean we have to agree on stuff. We can just be wrestling fans. Welcome home. That's what a lot of people were saying to him. Vince basically got brought up a little bit. Vince says, say, welcome home. And he didn't see him after that. Ariel's like, you didn't see him after that? And Punk says, I think some stuff came up. Now, to be fair, a lot of the gory details and the horror details of all the stuff that Vince McMahon did to the accuser, I'm just going to say, yes, her name is out there, but accuser, I don't feel the need to inflame the name. Once he saw the text, once Punk saw the text and all that stuff came out, it was unforgivable. Yes, there was stuff about the hush money payments and everything, but it's a give and take thing, and I'm not agreeing with people that sided with Vince. There are people that shouldn't have sided with Vince. Nobody really should have sided with Vince, quite frankly. I feel bad for, even thinking that Vince McMahon could skate on some of this stuff, because I thought just because he's rich he would. But it's unforgivable how basically Punk kind of compared it to the deal with Benoit. Now, obviously, Vince McMahon didn't murder people, but he did murder not just his credibility, but the psychological nature of a lot of people. That, just a week before, Benoit murdered Nancy and Daniel. Daniel has hands taped up and had, the wrist that had his hands taped up with the X on them, like Punk did, because of the straight edge deal. Punk had to come to terms with all this, and basically said the best thing about Vince, which has seen it, said something like this: he ruined his life. He ruined his life by ruining other people's lives. Yeah, that's about right. That he was stupid for leaving the paper trail. He was stupid. He was horrible to do it, But the fact that he just thought he could just totally skate on this, that's getting sidetracked. It's ridiculous. Mania plans, they end up following through. They were kind of fluctuating. He was supposed to face Rollins. Yeah, he'd want to face Roman at some point. That got put on hold because of the injury. He praises Roman. Heyman, The Rock's return, because it's boosting business. It's helping everybody out. Pro wrestling is about making money. And swearing in small doses works, but if a guy lower on the roster, lower on the, I guess the ladder, not even the corporate ladder, but the roster ladder, lower card guy says something swearing, it better be as impactful as The Rock. That's why if you do it in small doses, basically it's his way of saying main event talent should say this kind of stuff, and when lower card talents boost themselves up, then they can get away with saying that stuff. Unfortunately, that's where AEW got into where they were just saying fuckity McFuck and shit and all this stuff. And no wonder Warner Brothers Discovery, run by the way, Zasloff, that piece of shit. No wonder they were upset by that, especially the declining ratings. So, all in, no one picked him up. He wasn't crying about it. He was riding the tube, but he was confused. He didn't know. He was just very unprofessional by the company and irresponsible because Tony Khan wouldn't put his goddamn foot down. The Rio Glass Cry Me a River thing. He didn't really want to talk about it, and what he could talk about, he didn't want to litigate again. And Ariel didn't press him, but you could tell Punk wanted to say some stuff, but also kind of wanted to move on from all that. That the separate shows thing, no, just let me go. Tony wouldn't do that. This is not a real business, is what he was saying. He was really, he didn't want to knock his friends that are there. Darby, FTR, FT Darb, as it were. That would be a great team name. It just sounds like a British, I don't know, like a British dessert. But then we get to the stuff about Jack Perry. How everybody was basically telling him, doctors and other people were just saying, look, you shouldn't do this. Jack wanted to, I guess, go home and collect his paycheck and not bother being on, going to Canada. And travel apparently was really, really difficult, even though I think Punk likes Canada. Apparently travel was really difficult at that point. Shivani was cussed out by Jack Perry. Shivani, who never tries to piss anybody off. So let me just say really quickly about Jack Perry that he better be thankful that his dad was a famous actor. Because if his dad wasn't a famous actor, would he have gotten even a first look as far as a wrestler? No. He's minute. He's not great. He was decent for a bit. He was fine in a tag team. They turned him heel because he really does strike everybody as an unlikable douche waffle. And sure, he's 26. And I know there are people that have talked to me about this on social media. And if anybody has talked about it in the comments on any YouTube videos, I apologize. I do not think that he has much of a future in wrestling. Yes, there are people in their 20s that didn't do all that well, because of behavioral issues, even if they had the talent. But I don't see it working for Jack Perry. I've seen a little bit of what he's done in New Japan, and it's not good. Partly because the House of Torture stuff and various things have driven me away from reviewing New Japan. I might review Windy City Riot. I don't know. So I think Gabriel Kidd is on that show. And that requires me to put up with a Gabriel Kidd match. Let's get back to Jack Perry, though. He better be fucking lucky, by the way, that all Punk did was choke him a little bit. Now, am I saying that Punk was totally right? No, but if Jack Perry did push him and got him angry and just wouldn't leave it well enough alone, yeah, he got bitch smacked around and fucking deserved it. That's a damn shame that Punk didn't really hurt him. But Punk also is enough of a professional. And Jack Perry, who's friends, by the way, with the Elite, especially the EVPs, the Bucks, who are not professionals at all and are not wrestlers, are not even close in the conversation of best tag team ever. Not even best tag team in their own company. They aren't even the best tag team that has wrestled in the past month. No. Basically, he told Tony he needs to handle it. Now, everything seemed fine, but then all the stuff you need to handle it. You won't like how I handle it. Talk about prophetic. And, we do stuff here differently. We take stuff seriously. If you want to do that, go to Dynamite. Go do your stuff there. Go to Wednesdays. He took it personally. I didn't think it would be like that. And it's who he's friends with. Now, am I saying that the Bucks are like cult-like leaders? I mean, they believe in a fictitious fairy tale book, so yeah, and I'm sorry if you don't like that, but that's how I feel. And that is the kind of poisonous, toxicity, as opposed to non-poisonous toxicity, that religion tends to do, and the Bucks have used that to justify their bigotry and their hatred. But Jack bowed up to him. I didn't punch somebody, I just choked him a little bit. There are people that don't agree with how Punk handled that. Well, Jack Perry had been seen on AEW programming for a while, and maybe he wanted to be released. Tony didn't release him. He just put him in New Japan for a bit to let his contract run out. I don't know. I don't actually know. I don't know these people personally. But he has been seen for a reason, at least on AEW programming. And I can't say I've missed him. The feud with Christian Cage was like the last good thing that he did. And then, the stuff with Joe, he talked about Joe being there. He went into great detail with this. I encourage you guys to check it out. Let's Tear It Up. He went out there for Joe. Ariel had a funny line where he said 100,000 fans, and I don't know, you have to check the turnstile count. That was good shit. And now they're not even going to sell more than 50,000 tickets because they have a different setup. I forget the reason. Do they not think they can fill it? Is there another event going on? Is there a football game going on where they can't configure it? A genuine question. Does anybody know why Wembley is not configured to hold the same amount of fans? Because I would think, considering that they are only going to probably run that once a year, assuming the company keeps going, you would have thought they would have tried for the same amount of crowd. He bought Nando's for some of the people. He didn't talk to Tony after Wembley. Tony tried to babyface it, and Punk basically said, yeah, that wasn't what happened. Because during this whole fracas and everything, he's pissed off at Tony and basically says, fuck you, I quit. And you can't blame him. You can't blame him. He tore it up with Joe. He did the Pepsi plunge. No wonder he did the Pepsi plunge at, just 44 years old, I think, at that point. And it wasn't that long ago. It was like 7 months? Not even 8 months. He did that, and it was pretty goddamn cool. Because he knew it was his last match. And then he felt his reputation was slandered there. And look, again, Punk is abrasive and Punk can be a dick. And that's just based solely on interviews. And that's what I respect about him. He will not take any shit. And he can, at the very least, be polarizing. I like Punk. Because just, I know how it is to be just a polarizing individual just as a regular person. He's a celebrity. I don't give a fuck if I piss people off, and I'm just a regular person who works customer service. So, he has friends there. He wishes them well. Tony is not a boss. He's a nice guy. It's a detriment to the company, but it's not my company. It's the nicest way. Yes, he worked with Vince more. He didn't work with Tony as much. He's probably trying to keep maybe criticism a little bit light, but he didn't say anything inflammatory or anything that people didn't already know and people didn't already suspect about AEW being a sloppy shop. And a company, by the way, that I root for. I've been to every single AEW show they have run in Washington. I went to the first Dynamite they had on January 4th, 2023. I went to the Collision and then decided to buy a ticket, and then bought the tickets for Wrestle Dream because they had that last minute. And the combined crowd for Wrestle Dream and Collision was maybe 1,000 people over what they did for the first Dynamite. And I'm going to the May 15th show that they're going to be running at the Angel of the Winds Arena that I think is set up for about 3,200, maybe 3,300 people in a 10,000 seat arena. Even saying up for 6,000 would look better. That basically scripted verbiage doesn't work for some. Some need that guidance. And then it gets to the stuff with Hangman. Because Hangman, I'm not going to miss Hangman if he doesn't come back. Because even though Hangman is fairly over, they flip-flop with him. He has proven he's not really all that great on promos. And then maybe Punk was right about him being kind of an empty-headed dipshit. Because there were just things that Punk had a right to be upset because Hangman was upset about Colt Cabana. Somebody that I saw at one of my first indie shows. Somebody who is a master of comedy wrestling and can actually do the world of sports stuff. He's capable of wrestling, but Colt Cabana, that's what it is. He's like, Punk's like, why did you do this? What the hell? could have gotten into a fight if he wanted to. Couldn't trust him at Double or Nothing 2022 because what if he hurt him? And then the scrum, the all-out scrum. It was high school, cliquey, drama bullshit. Tony should have handled it, and he didn't handle it. And that is a prevalent theme, and Tony should have handled it. Tony should have been a man, put it down and said, thanks, guys, but you're fired. If he had fired the Bucks or just paid them the length of their contract and not re-signed them, would it have mattered? Oh, it's all Elite Wrestling. Okay, the Elite ain't drawing shit. World Championship Wrestling. That was a company that went through a lot of fluxes. Yeah, it had Sting. He was a mainstay. Flair had his sojourn for about 18 months into WWE, or close to it. It was almost 2 years. The whole point is, Dusty had his sojourn up there for about 18 months. People bounce back and forth, but the constant is if you focus on wrestling, and there's no focus in AEW. There's stuff that they can actually hold on to, like the MJF Punk feud. What they had with Swerve and Hangman was fine, but we don't know when Hangman's going to come back, and then he's going to be a face, and Swerve's this, and nobody knows what's going on. Tony needs to have somebody help him book this thing, because it's a mess. It's a mess, and that's what Punk said, and he was frustrated. And I didn't have to sign an NDA for anything I did wrong, basically. Which, depending on what you believe. Punk did hurt his tricep, tore his tricep either in the match, don't know. I think he probably tore it in the match, I'm guessing. But some altercation happened. Omega, to his credit, apparently was one of the people trying to actually work it out with Punk. But, because Omega, for whatever faults he has, plenty, at least he was trying to make it work, apparently. And, I mean, they can't talk about it, but that's been rumor and innuendo. The Bucks didn't want to because the Bucks didn't like the fact that they couldn't win a fight against a corpse. A corpse could kick their ass. And a corpse also could wrestle better and sell better. And a corpse also has better hair. But he knocks the fake reporters. He mentions the NDA stuff and basically says, well, Tony can talk about it, but Tony didn't talk to you. And yeah, no one in AEW contacted him for 6 months while he was injured. The doctor stuff was a nightmare. Recovery was tough. He says recovery with the WWE, or under the WWE umbrella, is better. That he came back for his friends. He had a year left maybe on his contract. The one Bill Phil counterfeit Bucks thing. I mean, let's be honest, the Bucks are counterfeits. Counterfeit wrestlers, counterfeit human beings, and I stand by that. It was just him basically blurring the lines. It was good. He made friends in AEW. Got to wrestle Sting at the Greensboro Memorial Coliseum. Their business is not a real business. It's not about making money. Having good matches and all that and everything, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but when you're trying to build a business, you can't. They can't get return customers. Yeah, they had Sting's last match sold out at the Greensboro Coliseum. Yes, their Toronto show recently did well. The Quebec City one, less so. I mean, even though that crowd was that crowd tried to be loud. I'm just saying they can't get return business, and especially in Washington State. This will be upcoming the fourth show that they have run in like 16 months. And they have barely drawn 15,000 people. No, they barely drawn like maybe 13,000 people between three shows after drawing about 9,100, 9,500 for the first show. They're not getting enough repeat business because they don't know how to follow up on stuff. And Punk was talking about, talking to a lady at an indie show in Chicago. I don't know what it was. And that indie shit doesn't fly on a national stage. You can sprinkle it in small doses, but it doesn't work. You can't build a national television product on it. Ding, there you are. And WWE has their issues. I am no big defender of WWE. They have their problems, and they definitely need to get stuff taken care of. But they're selling out arenas. However they're doing it, they're selling out arenas. The feud with MJF, which is my favorite thing that Punk did. My absolute favorite thing. I'm not going to say everything was 100% perfect, but given the fact we're grading on the curve, they did some good shit. He got rid of his Twitter, apparently, or just doesn't use it. I'm not sure. And MJF basically tried to cater too much to the minute crowd. And AEW will exist as long as Tony wants it to. We know that. And you know, if you're more happy with some goof giving you 5 stars, you know, had a 5-star match instead of, and when the building's a quarter full, we're not in the same business. Butchered that, but whatever. I'm tired. And that he's, you know, the guaranteed money aspect nearly ruined wrestling. And while he appreciates the fact that guaranteed money is a good thing, it also takes away the desire, the push to build upon, you know, making the house better. That's what he wanted to do with Collision. If one more person bought a ticket the next time they came to that same market, fine. The thing is, he was only around for the first 9 weeks of Collision, something like that. And Punk was gracious as far as talking to Ariel Helwani various times. I believe he mentioned something about Paul Heyman, one of his kids having a party of some kind. Was it a bar mitzvah? I think he has a son. I don't think he has 2 daughters. He doesn't regret coming back, though. And Ariel was pretty nice about the gracious stuff. Matt Brody, King, Darby, FTR, Danhausen, Sting. He doesn't want to get anybody else in trouble. Sting's retired. I think Sting's Teflon. And seeking knowledge from people that have been around longer than him, passing it on to people that, you know, need that chance to grow. Going back to Nick Khan, talking about the WWE backstage stuff. It almost led to a return, but didn't quite work out. And then water under the bridge with Triple H. That he wishes that he wishes things had ended better in AEW. He wishes the talents well. He's happy to be gone, though. It just wasn't going to work out. He knows the Elite didn't want him there. And that's very obvious that the Elite and friends didn't want him there. And it's funny that Brandon Cutler was one of the people tweeting about, like, you know, mocking Punk at some points. I'm forgetting the verbiage, but yeah, Brandon Cutler, of all people. You know, emaciated, just incredible. Who wouldn't even be in wrestling had it not been for the Bucks. That piece of shit thinks that he deserves to have a voice when he's lucky to even get a dime from wrestling. He should be doing a job like I do, because that's about all he's qualified for. He ain't qualified to be a wrestler. So, he didn't talk to people after leaving WWE because of the lawsuit. We knew about that, and I think he felt bad. There were some people that pressured, pushing down on him. And he took time to get over stuff. He doesn't take shit from anybody. He won't talk to Colt Cabana. Just like, I'm not talking to you without a lawyer present. I did like how he mentioned the Jeff Hardy feud. And I know that, you know, Punk did the straight edge and Jeff Hardy did the wild thing that he's... So it's not gotten over. It's easier to be weak like Jeff because you sure as hell can't be strong like me, and the straight edge savior thing, that was great. I just enjoyed it because Punk's right, because Jeff Hardy is a perpetual screw-up, just want to say. I'm not saying that Punk actually felt that way. It just reinforced how I feel about Jeff. And singing to Ray's kid, Aaliyah, that was actually kind of fun. That was like one of the best and creepiest things that he did. No chance of AJ coming back to WWE TV. Probably not. Maybe. Kinda. He is happy to be in the mix, so what if he's got gray hair? He earned this shit. He's as old as Terry Funk was when he was in Roadhouse. I forgot Terry Funk was in Roadhouse. I'll retro-review the first Roadhouse and review the new one at some point. There's a lot of shit to review this week because I'm reviewing this Mania week. And the injury was a dark time because he felt like he had stuff taken away from him. If he doesn't main event WrestleMania, he's fine now. He would have hated it a while ago, but whatever. The tribalism bullshit's brought up. Then they talk about hockey, the UFC stint, and that's basically it right there. So in closing, Punk was right. Punk was right to basically be upset at how things ended in AEW. And sure, it wasn't going to end up working out, but there was good business. There was good stuff that happened. And yeah, they're still making money. Are they doing as well on pay-per-view as they would have had they had Punk and maybe had Tony been a boss? put his foot down and maybe put his boot up the asses of the Bucks and say, get the fuck out of here. Nah, I think actually Punk would have been better off there. But then you would have had to have cleaned house, and Tony would have had to have admitted that his, real-life action figures can't get along and everything, and are actual human beings with, real emotions and bullshit feelings when it comes to certain people. They get their feelings hurt because they can't do their video game wrestling. That being said, I really did enjoy this stuff. I went over the bullet points. Hour and 50 minutes just flew by. Really, really good stuff. Now, again, I'm a Punk fan. I look forward to people in the comments getting upset at me. Again, I wouldn't have done what he did, but in his position, I don't blame him for doing what he did, because he had every right to be upset. And I look forward to when CM Punk is going to come back. Maybe he's back by SummerSlam. I kind of hope he is, because I would love to see him at SummerSlam, do the stuff with Drew, build this. If he gets, I do hope that he gets at least a shot to main event WrestleMania at least once. It would be cool. That being said, excuse me, I'm just happy that Punk is there, because he's getting to do what he wants to do. So, in closing, good interview. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Worthland. I'll see you soon.